Hello everybody, good to see you here. I'm Jacek and you're watching Polish Explained. Today I'm going to focus on a key element of Polish grammar which good command of is crucial to master Polish language, the verb aspect. I know that it's quite a challenge for most non-Slavic students as we have no corresponding phenomenon in English, and that's why it's so important to get it right from the very beginning. In today's video, I will explain what perfective and imperfective verbs are, how do we get perfective-imperfective verb pairs, and in what situations to use them. If you'd like to have additional notes including a list of 320 aspect pairs for A1, A2 and B1 level, please have a look at the description box down below. To begin with, the essential information about the verb aspect in Polish is that it's a way to add a bit more information to the verb we use. This information is related to where the action brings us, what is the result of it. Polish has two aspects, that means that verbs come in two versions, perfective and imperfective. Yes, these are their fancy names. Imperfective verb, in its meaning, is simply focused on the action itself. For example, Polish to eat, jeść, has a simple meaning of to eat. Perfective version of this verb, zjeść, on the other hand, has a little bit different, hidden meaning than jeść. It also means to eat, but eat in a certain way. Perfective verb zjeść has the meaning to eat in such a way that we finish eating. So the perfective aspect gives us this additional meaning of not just performing an action, not just doing an action, but also completing or finishing this action. Now, in Polish we have past, present and future tense. We can use perfective aspect to talk about past and future, and imperfective aspect to talk about all three of them. That's simply because we can't decide on the completion of an action that is taking place right now. Let's illustrate it with an example. If we put the jeść, zjeść per into past tense, we'll get ja jadłem and ja zjadłem. Remember that there is nothing worse than trying to understand the difference simply translating these two. Instead, we need to understand the philosophical difference between these two expressions. The first one, ja jadłem, conveys a simple meaning of I ate, but it could be also translated as I was eating or I have eaten. What we need to remember here is that this sentence simply states that an action of me eating has taken place. At some point in time, I was in the middle of putting food into my mouth, chewing and swallowing. If we create a perfective verb, in this case by adding z at the beginning, we give a little bit more additional information about the action. Now we can see that this action has been finished or completed in some way. For example, we have eaten everything or we have eaten so that we are no longer hungry. Using the perfective version of the verb to eat, we sort of think forward to where the action brings us. Let's have a look at another example. Ja będę gotować obiad. I will cook a dinner or I will be cooking a dinner. Ja ugotuję obiad. I will have cooked a dinner. If we hear the second one, perfective ugotuję, means that cooking will have been successfully finished and we will have food to eat. The first one, imperfective, będę gotować, doesn't sound so optimistic. Maybe somebody will start cooking but won't finish, or it might not go well so there won't be anything to eat. So far we have seen two aspect pairs of verbs. Usually we create a perfective verb from an imperfective one by adding a prefix, an additional letter or few added at the beginning of the words. In some cases, like kupować, kupić, we will change the ending of the words. There are also a few aspect pairs composed by two completely different words. Unfortunately, there are no rules to create these pairs by ourselves. At the beginning, it's best to work with a table for aspect pairs and then develop a habit of including both aspects in our notes throughout our studies. I know that the idea of an action being completed or not may sound vague, particularly in future tense. Now let's have a look at different situations when either perfective or imperfective verbs are used. The first case when we need to choose between imperfective and perfective verbs is when we decide to include information about the result of an action or not. Again, imperfective verbs will have limited meaning. They will be used when we want to say that an action takes place without mentioning its result. Perfective verbs will be used to additionally inform that we not only do an action, but also that we successfully complete it. It may also allow us to think forward to what comes next. A sentence with an imperfective verb, przygotowywać, On będzie przygotowywać śniadanie tells us that this person will be in charge of making breakfast. Indeed, he will start and try to make breakfast, but we don't know if he will finish or not. The same sentence with a perfective verb, ja przygotuję śniadanie, tells us that after all, the breakfast will be ready to eat. Here and in all other examples, please bear in mind that choosing either of these verbs does not mean that we perform the action differently. What changes is what we try to emphasize, what we focus on in a sentence. In the sentence on the left, we don't mention any result, we focus on the action itself. What we're interested in is making breakfast. In the sentence on the right, we're also interested in having this breakfast. Here we have the thinking forward that I've mentioned earlier. Saying the second sentence, we can already imagine the breakfast that is ready waiting for us on the table to be eaten. Here's another example. In many situations, it may be ambiguous which verb to choose. You can memorize this example as it makes the difference more visible. To say, what did you do recently in Polish, we could either have co robiłeś ostatnio or co zrobiłeś ostatnio. According to what we've just learned, the imperfective verb on the left will refer to actions and the perfective verb on the right to results. Consequently, co robiłeś ostatnio sounds like a friendly English what have you been up to. The perfective sentence co zrobiłeś ostatnio is a rather unfriendly way to ask what are the results of whatever you've been doing. You could possibly hear that being scolded by your boss or parents. Another difference between the imperfective and perfective verbs is whether an action is repeated, happens regularly, or whether we talk about one particular action. In this sentence, on ciągle kupował papierosy, we use an imperfective verb because we want to emphasize the repetitiveness of the action more than its result. The message here is that he kept buying cigarettes on and on. Although the result may be assumed, it isn't the key information. If this action took place only once, on kupił papierosy, it's natural to include the information about the result. Otherwise we would say, he tried to buy cigarettes if he hadn't succeeded. Normally, for repeated, regular or habitual actions, we will use imperfective aspect. Thirdly, the way we view an action is reflected in the use of aspect. We may present an action with undefined result as a process and the one with clearly stated result as a change. A process lasts over a period of time, what naturally downplays the importance of its end. A change is more rapid. We move from an incomplete state to the complete state. On robił zadanie domowe przez godzinę. He was doing homework for an hour. He spent an hour doing this and the result is less important. On szybko zrobił zadanie domowe. He had homework to do, he did it quickly, and now it's done. The last difference refers to many actions taking place together. If they take place at the same time, we'll use the imperfective aspect just to mention their mutual occurrence. If actions happen one after another, we'll use the perfective aspect to emphasize that one action ended and then another took place, particularly if one caused the other. A sentence, jechałem autem I słuchałem muzyki, tells us that I was driving and listening to music at the same time. It also doesn't mention if we reached our destination or listened to all the music. In napisałem wiadomość I wysłałem ją, I clearly finished writing a message first to be able to send it. I hope you understand the concept of perfective and imperfective better a little bit better now. It's best to study perfective and imperfective verbs together as they both form the core of Polish language. Surprisingly, online resources include only up to around 20 different aspect pairs, what makes studying really difficult. To help you with that, I prepared notes from this lesson that include a list of 320 common aspect pairs for A1, A2 and B1 level, divided by prefixes and ending changes. To buy a PDF with notes from today's lesson, please have a look at the description box below. In this PDF you will also find additional information on Polish verbs of motion that have one perfective but two imperfective forms, and for this reason are explained in a different video. If you'd like to incorporate listening practice to your studies to familiarize yourself with this and many other topics, check out our Polish Explained Beginner podcast series, designed for A2 to B1 level. For each episode, we also have scripts, translations and explanations to help you study with as well. I would also love to hear about your experience and thoughts on this subject in the comment section. See you in the next video. Do zobaczenia!